I thought you might be interested to see the debate and the questions to Chris Bryant about Trump's proposals to put 100% tariff on American films and thereby potentially to destroy the British film industry overnight. Chris Bryant, I must say, takes this matter far more seriously than I expected, and I hadn't fully realised this was part of his brief. So I am relieved because he is a person who has a sound interest in the arts, and he conducted this debate and session with a lot of humour. So do enjoy it. Have a look and see what's going on. And his rapport with the speaker is simply delightful.
Right, we now come to the urgent question. Stuart Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Minister if he will make a statement on the potential implications for the UK film industry of the United States' proposed 100% tariff on foreign-produced films.
Minister Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the House will be aware, President Trump announced on Sunday that he had authorised the Commerce Department to initiate tariffs on all movies produced in foreign lands. He has made other comments since. This is a very fluid situation, and we will continue to take a calm and steady approach. I spent most of Monday talking to UK and US filmmakers and the General Secretary of Bectu, amongst others, and I can tell the House that we are already in active discussions with the top of the US administration on this subject. We are working hard to establish what might be proposed, if anything, and to make sure our world-beating creative industries are protected. We're absolutely committed to ensuring the film industry can continue to thrive and create good jobs right across the UK. UK film and high-end television generated production spend of £5.6 billion in 2024, and we want to work with our domestic industry and international partners to continue to build on that success. We are absolutely clear that the deep ties between the US and UK film industries provide mutual benefits to both countries. Productions are, by their very nature, international partnerships, which are often developed and created across different countries and locations. Indeed, US movies are often multinational precisely because US movies earn far more overseas than they do domestically in the United States of America. The UK and the US both benefit when the likes of Star Wars and Mission Impossible are filmed in the UK, just as we both benefit from the close working relationship between our producers, talent and crew. Our countries have a long history of working together to drive the growth and creative success of our film and television sectors. From Cary Grant to Hugh Grant and Alfred Hitchcock to Christopher Nolan, British talent has often been at the forefront of the US sector, and I'm absolutely sure this will continue in the years ahead. I was once told by a film producer, never judge a film by the first 10 minutes. I think we can say the same of this.
Secretary of State Stuart Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. And as he rightly says, we learned over the weekend that the President administration intends to impose this 100% tariff on all films produced outside the US. It is understood that he's directed US government to begin implementing this policy immediately. Now, I welcome the fact the Minister absolutely recognised the film industry in this country is a jewel in our crown and world-leading creative industries. And I would also point out that, of course, the sector alone is worth $1.96 billion here and supports 195,000 jobs up and down the country. And, of course, it shows off our great British culture and values and the talent that we have, and also some of the most amazing settings for so many films of different genres. And I'm glad that they are working to ensure that all is done to give confidence to our directors, actors, screenwriters, producers, that they are thinking about them, because for both independent filmmakers and major studios, this action could result in cancelled projects, lost investment and significant decline in UK film exports, which is especially hard given they're still recovering after the COVID pandemic. But I have to say, it is disappointing that the government failed to start the negotiations with President Trump's team for 5 months after the election and fired Britain's top trade negotiator. And it is difficult not to wonder if a different approach could have led to a different outcome. Nonetheless, The priority is to protect our film industry. So what assessment has he made of the potential impact on the UK film sector? What immediate steps is the government taking to engage with the US and ensure that that investment in UK facilities is highlighted comes from many US businesses who would be affected? And what contingency plans has he prepared in the event that no exemptions can be secured? And finally, what assessment have they made on the potential drastic cut in the BBC studio's profits, which sales into the US market could have on the licence fee?
Well, first of all, can I, on a cooperative note, say that one of the reasons that we have a very strong film and high-end television sector in the UK is because of the joint policy that has been adopted across several years by both Conservative and Labour administrations, which is to make sure that we have very competitive tax credits and I pay tribute to the work that was done by the previous government and that we were able to enhance when we brought in the two new tariffs, tax credits in the budget just before Christmas. Yes, we're not in favour of bringing in tariffs. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that in 1947 the Labour government did bring in tariffs on US films because we thought that there were too many US films being shown in British cinemas. It didn't go very well as a strategy because the Americans simply banned export of US films and we ended up watching Ben-Hur repeatedly in every cinema and a film called Hell's a Poppin', which I don't think anybody has since watched ever since. However, the successful bit of what we did in 1947 and 1948 was that we invested in the British film production system. And that led to films like Hamlet and Kind Hearts and Coronets. So I think that that's the pattern that we still want to adopt. But let me be absolutely clear. We believe that there are mutual benefits to both of us if we continue on the path that we have selected. I'm not sure precisely what is intended. I don't know what a tariff on a service would look like. I don't know whether it's intended that that will be on movie theatres. The danger for that is already in the US they have two major problems with the US film industry. One of them is distribution costs, and that could deal if they went down that route, it could lead to heavy problems for them. And the other problem is the very high costs of making movies in the United States of America. But as I say, most films these days are an international collaboration of some kind, and we want to maintain that. Even Paddington, I'm looking at the honourable gentleman from Cheltenham over there, only because I suspect he's about to mention it, and he's just given me a Paddington stare. Even Paddington, of course, has not just, which was a British production, but it was made by Studio Canal, which of course is part of Canal Plus, and it had Spanish actors as well as British actors. I mean, this is just a fact of modern films. They are multinational, and that is one of their strengths. Incidentally, I don't think Paddington ever went to Peru. I don't think they filmed any of it in Peru. And I'm told by my Peruvian friends that there aren't any bears in Peru.
Dave Bagpillier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I welcome the Minister's measured and thoughtful response to this latest announcement by President Trump and his full-throated support for the British film industry. He'll be aware that in my constituency in Hackney, Hackney South and Shoreditch and across Hackney, we're very much a venue for filming, both for film and television. In his discussions with the United States, will he make sure that he's also championing, as I think he just briefly referred to, high-end television that is produced and often filmed and made in Hackney, and also a plea for all of those creative industries in my constituency that feed into the film industry? Can he ensure that there's good communication from the government about these negotiations, because this is creating a good deal of uncertainty?
Minister.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend, and and I know Hackney very well, as she knows. I used to be a councillor in Hackney, and it's not just London; it's the whole of the United Kingdom, which is a phenomenal place to make a movie because we have some of the best scenery, some of the best buildings. It's not just Bath that gets used endlessly for lots of films, but when I was there a couple of weeks ago, I think people were listing a long list of films. But she's also right that. What is the difference between making Bridgerton or making a movie? Some of these things, the pattern is very similar. International collaboration is important because it delivers international audiences, and we want to maintain that.
Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. British film really is the marmalade sandwich in the lunchbox of our creative industries. It gave us Bond, Paddington, Harry Potter and Monty Python. Now, Donald Trump clearly thinks he's a godlike figure, but on the Lib Dem benches, we're very clear he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. If he had his way, we'd be watching Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Alcatraz, or perhaps the Executive Order of the Phoenix. So, can the Minister confirm that all options will be on the table to protect our film industry, including working with allies like Canada and Australia, who have shown strength in recent weeks by voting anti-Trump? Will he commit to immediately meeting with film industry leaders in the UK to coordinate a response in this area? And will the government back our world-leading creatives by doing the right thing on AI and copyright?
Well, I could have predicted half the question because I knew Paddington would get in there. But on the serious point, first of all, I am meeting with the industry tomorrow afternoon, and I look forward to understanding from them what precise concerns they may have, as well as the obvious concerns that all of us share. I want to just slightly caution against this word, which has been used, I think, 3 times now, that President Trump announced something. A clear policy has not been announced. And I think we need to be just careful about that, because it's difficult to see, as I said earlier, how you would impose a tariff on a service or on films in this way. So I want to be just careful and precise about the way we move forward on this. I've been asked, what are we doing? We've already had people in Washington, D.C., talking with people in the Trump administration at the highest level, and we will progress that. Of course, we want to do everything we possibly can to preserve the strength of the industry.
Joe Boris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of my little sisters works in the UK film and TV industry, and I'd like to say I'm immensely proud of her. Can I just urge the Minister to, as part of the soon-to-be published Creative Industry Sector Plan, to look at how we bolster homemade film and TV, particularly in Northumberland, where we've got some of those wonderful landscapes. Obviously, we sadly lost Sycamore Gap a couple of years ago. I know that provides a memorable backdrop. But we have Hadrian's Wall, we have a fantastic workforce, and too often I see young people in the North East have to leave the North East to get those creative opportunities elsewhere in the UK.
It's an extremely well-made point, and I would add to it something that I said when I appeared before the Select Committee, from whom we might hear in a moment or two, I guess, which is that I'm very keen on having a mixed economy in the British film industry. Sometimes we will be making films for other markets. Sometimes we'll be making films which are predominantly British stories, telling about the way we are in this country, selling them obviously around the world, but where the IP remains with British production companies. And it's that mix that I think that we need to achieve. I should say also, Mr. Speaker, just in response to the Honourable Gentleman, he talked about our relationship with the US. Actually, the Secretary of State last week was in India, and I want to make, and she wants to make sure that we have a much stronger relationship with India as well, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We think we can do a great deal more in that film production space as well.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Caroline.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There's no doubt that this speculation is going to cause huge worry to those working in British film production. But as he says, it also highlights once again the importance of bolstering British screen sector. And we did recommend steps to deliver this in a very recent Select Committee report. Yet within days of publishing that report, his department had already asked for an extension with which to respond. And then this weekend we heard rumours that the whole department is up for the chop under his government. And I'm not sure whether that's before or after he's sacrificed our creative industries on the altar of AI. So what I want to know from the Minister is, he's a brilliant communicator, and I know deep in his heart he cares passionately about this, but when is he going to show some grip and actually show some action on behalf of our world-leading creative industries, and in particular our screen sector?
Well, I hope she would accept that there are areas where I have taken very deliberate action on the back of recommendations from her Select Committee, not least in relation to a levy on gig and arena tickets to fund support for small music venues. But I take her point. I wasn't aware that we'd asked for an extension. We will get on with providing a response to her as fast as possible. It was an excellent report. I've read it. There are lots of good things in there that I do want to take forward. We probably won't be able to do everything in it. But look, I think one of the things that is really important that we focus on is skills in the UK screen industry. This has been raised repeatedly with me. I want every kid in the country to have a chance to work in the creative industries, and including in film and high-end television. Many of them wouldn't even think that that was a possibility for them. So we need to transform that whole pathway into those skills in the industry, and I know that's one of the things that our Select Committee has raised.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whether it's because of the fantastic state-of-the-art Shinfield Studios just up the road, or access to fantastic filming locations like Swinley Forest and the Crown Estate, or because of our incredible transport links, Bracknell Forest is increasingly becoming a go-to location for the film industry. But just as the Minister's already touched on, we do need to see more emphasis placed on homegrown skills, so young people in Bracknell can access the fantastic opportunities the film sector offers. So could he say a bit more about what this government is going to do to break down the barriers of opportunity into the film industry?
Minister.
Well, we have invested significant amounts of money already in the skills sector, and more came as a result of the budget this year. He's quite right that his patch is a go-to area for film production. But one of the reasons that US companies, and for that matter companies from many parts around the world, come to the UK to make films is because of the skills that we have in the UK. We have some of the best cinematographers, some of the best technical experts, the designers, as well as the acting talent, which means that it's possible to make a very convincing film in the UK more effectively and cheaper than in many other places. We're determined to make sure that the UK remains the best place in the world to make movies.
Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Film studios are a really important part of our economy in Hertfordshire. And they give opportunities instead of jobs, apprenticeships and work experience to people in my constituency of St Albans. Now, as the Minister has recognised, it's not remotely clear yet how these tariffs would actually operate, and many have said that they are unworkable. But if America does go ahead and we have to take action in this country to make sure our film industry is competitive, can I urge him to please look at the business rates regime with the Treasury? Nearby to me, Sky Studios in Elstree have seen their business rates go up by over 600%. They now account for 30% of their operating costs. So can I encourage the Minister to look at that as one measure that we can tackle to make sure that we protect our creative industries and film sector here in the UK?
She makes a very good point, which has been raised with me by several others. Of course, we did make special provision in the budget, which to ensure that there's the business rates for studios are protected until 2034. I think that is a good measure. I know that some of the very large ones are finding it more difficult. I'm happy to continue looking at that. But let me just read a statistic that may be helpful. According to the Motion Picture Association of the United States of America, their report published in January this year says that in 2023, the US earned $22.6 billion in film and television exports, and its services trade surplus was $15.3 billion, or 6% of the total US trade surplus in services. I think it is mutually beneficial for the US and the UK to remain with the system that we have without tariffs.
Chris Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you'll be aware, Harlow is the birthplace of Rupert Grint, Joe Joyner, Rick Mayall, and I have to mention Layla Khan because I used to teach her and she's an up-and-coming star. It's also recently doubled for Paris in an episode of The Crown. Does the Minister agree with me that Harlow, as well as the rest of the UK, has a huge amount of talent, and far from relying on US importing of films, we actually produce some fantastic films in this country, and our film industry is growing, and what can this government do to support it to continue to grow and thrive?
Minister.
Well, in particular, he's quite right about Harlow, and I would argue many different parts of the UK that have never yet managed to get into films need to up their game. Local authorities can play a role, I think, in making sure that their area is considered as a potential place to make a film. Often it's about whether there's other facilities available in the local area that can contribute to that. But he makes a fair point on behalf of Harlow. I think that if there is a film, he'll be starring in it.
Oliver Dowden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I may be able to help the Minister. Paddington Bear actually lives in Boreham Wood because Paddington Bear, the movie, was produced at Elstree Film Studios in my constituency, which sits alongside Sky at Elstree as jewels in the crown of the British industry. And it's no surprise that Donald Trump is jealous because, by many accounts, more film and television content is produced in Hertfordshire than in Hollywood. Yep. But as the Minister rightly says, this is of mutual benefit between our two nations. But there is one thing that the Minister could do right now, and for once I will say that I agree with my honourable friend, the Honourable Lady, the Minister for, the Member of Parliament for St Albans. I'll get my facts right in a moment. And this is the key point. Business rates are proving crippling for many of our studios, including Elstree Film Studios. So I would urge the Minister to have another go at the Treasury. I remember this with the Culture Recovery Fund. They're resistant to begin with, but if you keep on going, you get some further movement. That would be a huge fillip to the industry and help it withstand whatever shocks it may face.
Minister.
Very confused about who's a minister and who's not a minister these days. Look, I accept the point. It's clearly an issue. And in fact, I remember when we were in opposition, I was regularly knocking on the door of the shadow Secretary of State, trying to get him to do something, to persuade the Treasury to do something about business rates at the time. Look, I'm fully on board. I understand the problem that we have, and I look forward to him assisting me in more endeavours in the future. Hugh Bonneville told me that he was slightly upset when he signed up to Paddington in Peru because he thought he was going to be filming in Peru, but he said, I got as far as Boreham Wood.
Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The economy is set to benefit from a £50 billion boost from the Universal Theme Park in Bedfordshire, which is going to, as all members will welcome, star Paddington Bear. Would the Minister agree that stars like Paddington Bear actually have an enormous amount of soft power? I think we've heard that today in the Chamber. So what can he do to reassure me that he is going to make sure that we protect and support the very next generation of great British storytellers?
Minister.
She makes a very good point about, and we're delighted, incidentally, that the theme park is going to happen. I think that will be absolutely transformational for the British tourism industry. Apart from anything else, it'll be the largest theme park across the whole of Europe. I'm very grateful to my colleagues in the Treasury who certainly delivered when it was necessary in relation to that. I do want to emphasise how important are not just film, but high-end television, and for that matter, the very existence of the BBC and stuff that's produced by ITV and many others is as part of our soft power. Though I think Paddington probably counts as hard power.
Clive Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Shinfield Studio in Wokingham Borough has brought hundreds of jobs to my constituents and many across Berkshire. It's a very important part of our local economy and a symbol of the UK's creative strength. We must not forget Berkshire is the Hollywood of Britain, and it must be protected from Donald Trump's reckless tariffs. Will the Minister condemn these harmful tariffs and work with the film industry to ensure that the UK remains the world's premier destination for film investment?
He's absolutely right. We want to maintain it as the premier destination for international investment, not just from the United States of America. I've already referred to India, but I would also argue Nigeria. I'd like to see a lot more co-production between the UK and Nigeria. It's worth bearing in mind, incidentally, that 51% of our movie exports go to the European Union. So, I mean, this is a genuinely open market, and my belief is that free trade is better than tariffs.
Andrew Peck.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Minister will know that the UK has a world-leading film and TV workforce that flies the flag for collaboration, British talent, and for economic growth around the world. But he will also know that much of our film workforce is freelance, and he will be watching this news with anxiety, particularly as many of them are still recovering from the impact of the industrial action taken in the US recently. So can I thank him for his hard work, and I'm pleased he's spoken to Philippa Childs, the head of BEC2. BEC2 are fearless champions for our industry in the UK. Can I ask him, can he join me in reassuring BEC2 members and our film workforce that we are on their side and we will help protect film talent in the UK, whatever happens?
Mr Speaker, I'll make 2 points following on from that. First is the point about how the difficulties that there have been in the UK market film and high-end television industry in the last couple of years, because of what happened in the United States of America, makes that point about the mutuality between the US and the UK film industry all the stronger. The truth is, I would like the US movie industry to be strong, because if it's strong, our industry will be strong as well. I think there are net benefits to both of us, and there's a win-win here. The second point is about freelance. Yes, I've often worried that so much of the creative industries rely on freelance workers. Now, in many cases, that's great. People want that kind of career, but they also need some degree of security if they're to be able to, take out a mortgage and plan their economic future. So that's one of the things that we're definitely looking at in relation to the industrial strategy, which we hope we'll be publishing soon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The film industry is enormously important to the Buckinghamshire economy, with Pinewood Studios in my honourable friend for Beaconsfield constituency, but that's supporting many of my constituents in jobs, not just at the studios themselves, but the many supply chain businesses that feed into that. And Pinewood go over and above most other businesses I know in providing opportunities to young people through their Futures Festival of really showcasing every single career that could be had in the film industry. Much of that success is actually done on American money, because with companies like Disney and Amazon using Pinewood out of choice, that is where the success comes from. So on top of what the Minister has said about working with the Trump administration to try and avoid these tariffs, can he assure us that he's also working with companies like Disney, like Amazon, to ensure that those American brands are speaking up to say why they are choosing Pinewood and other UK studios?
Minister.
Actually, I think the first text message I received very early on Monday morning was from Pinewood. Yes, I'm on that case as well. And he makes it. It's not just incidentally about Amazon and Disney. It's also about the streamers and a whole series of different other organisations who like making their product here in the United Kingdom. And of course, Pinewood is the home of Bond. I mean, that too now makes the point, because historically, I think I'm right in saying that the distribution rights for Bond were with an American company, but the production rights were with Barbara Broccoli and her relatives. But now all of that is with the US. So let me put it this way. I'm very hopeful that Bond will still always be British.
John Sleeper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad that the Minister mentioned the phrase win-win, because in international trade, in the film industry, in the creative industries, it has to be about win-win rather than zero-sum. And I would like to point out that when I've discussed this industry with Fabian Riggle, the founder of Secret Cinema, it's absolutely clear we have such incredible innovators in our creative industry and in the film sector specifically. And in order for them to flourish, we need to retain that sense that it's a win-win internationally and for the UK, not zero-sum.
He makes an extremely good point, Mr. Speaker. And if I might just leap off the word cinema that he used there, to make the point that actually film is not just about production, it's also about finding audiences. And one of my concerns in the UK is about how do we make sure that cinemas, they would be called movie theatres in the United States of America, I guess, can flourish as well. They can be a really important part of dignity in a town. In a town. A town that's got a cinema is likely to be a place that has respect for itself, and I'd like to make sure that that continues into the future.
Pete Wishaw.
It's now one of the most sought-after film destinations in the world, and US film companies now regularly base their operations within Scotland. We've featured in everything from Batman to Indiana Jones to World War Z, and all of this will be put at risk with any concept of tariffs at all, as well as a developing film sector in Scotland. Will he therefore work closely with the Scottish Government in any response to the US, and will he state quite clearly that this would be mutually self-destructive and that all parties are set to lose if they do proceed with anything approaching tariffs?
Well, I've already made the point that we think there's a win-win, that we, into the future, if you have strong US movie industry, that will benefit a strong UK movie industry. I believe in fair trade and free trade. In fact, over recent years, it's been worrying, I think, that more and more countries have wanted to put up protectionism around a whole series of industries. It hasn't tended to happen in services. It's tended to be more about goods, which is one of the other other issues in here. He's absolutely right about Scotland. I'm very keen on working with all the devolved administrations to make sure that we remain the best place to make films and high-end television. It's worth saying, incidentally, I don't know whether anybody's watched Havoc, but that was all filmed in Wales. Sorry, I wasn't referring to the Conservative Party, no. You misheard, did you? Yes. But Havoc was all filmed in Wales, but looks as if it's an American dystopian city.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Warner Brothers Studios Leavesden is in my constituency of South West Hertfordshire and is actually a genuine world-class film and TV production centre, providing thousands of jobs, generating a significant wealth for the UK economy and earning their reputation as Hollywood in Hertfordshire. Major international blockbusters including Barbie, Mission Impossible, Paddington and the Harry Potter franchise have been filmed there. And the recently confirmed HBO Harry Potter TV series is set to be filmed there this summer. Leaving aside the decisions of the Chancellor has made and the existing impact they have had on the economy, can the Minister provide reassurance that he will continue to update the House and the industry more widely about the mitigations that this government is going to potentially do if these tariffs do come to fruition? Thank you.
Minister.
Well, we're working on making sure that we have a proper trade deal that would not just mitigate, but mean that we didn't end up in the situation that he's just described. I know Leavesden well, and for that matter, Warners were in touch very quick. I think I was in touch with them very quickly on Monday morning as well. I'm very hopeful that they'll be part of our discussions when I gather the industry tomorrow afternoon. But he makes a very good point.
Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, unlike many others in the House, Totnes does not have film studios, and South Devon doesn't have. There's never been a major movie made there, but we do have a lot of creatives living in our community, from writers to musicians to producers, and a costume maker who happens to be my daughter, who I'm very proud of and who is entering this industry, an industry that we should all be proud of. Now, these proposed tariffs will deal another blow to the UK film industry if they materialise, following on from the strikes we've already seen. So can I ask the Minister for his assurance that he's ready to work to protect and insulate the UK film industry and all the jobs it sustains, particularly freelance jobs, by pushing for either tax credits or business rate adjustments to support the industry here? Thank you.
Minister.
I find it difficult to believe that there hasn't been a single film ever made in Devon. But if there hasn't, I mean, one of my major aims must be to make sure that in the next few years there is a film made in Devon, and maybe we'll be able to get her a bit part. If I might just refer back to Cheltenham, one of the films that was made in Cheltenham many, many years ago was the film If, which is a wonderful film, Lindsay Anderson. But all I would say is the word if is a very important one at the moment, if these tariffs were to be imposed.
Dr. Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Sunday, the President of the United States said, uppercase, "We want movies made in America again!" exclam. Would the Minister agree with me that the key to making great movies is to ensure artistic freedom and expression and to grow the necessary skills? And with that in mind, would you visit Tech Trowbridge in my constituency, which is doing a good job in upskilling young people in multimedia?
Minister.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a one-time producer of a British-made film myself, I'm proud that North Norfolk has been the backdrop for many great films, including, of course, Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa. It's no wonder that President Trump would want to dissuade such a film from coming to America. As Steve Coogan himself has said, the only person on earth who's more Alan Partridge than Alan Partridge is Donald Trump. Can the Minister assure the blossoming creative sector in North Norfolk that he values their contributions to our economy, and reassure them and me that the government will do everything it can to protect them from another Trump trade tantrum?
Well, he refers to some of the things I've already spoken about, but I want to ask him why he didn't make his film in Devon. because he's obviously not got the message from his own party colleagues. Look, I mean, there are lots of great British films that will be watched in American movie cinemas over the weeks to come, and I'm absolutely certain that no president is going to want to say, don't watch British films. One of the films that I've enjoyed most over the last few months is Conclave, a phenomenal success and remarkably timely.
Sammy Wilson.
Mr. Speaker, the film industry is, of course, important in Northern Ireland because the executive has poured a considerable amount of money into NI Screen, and we have had the very internationally successful Game of Thrones filmed in Northern Ireland, and much of that was filmed in my own constituency, and you can see the benefits. I mean, tens of millions of pounds being poured in terms of building sets, costume, catering, and even now we still have thousands of tourists every year coming to see where the films went, so there's a long legacy from it. So I welcome the way in which the Minister is dealing with this. It is speculation at the moment, but before it becomes policy, it's important that we get the message over to the administration. And would he ensure that in constructing those arguments, he has consultations with the Northern Ireland Executive to ensure that Northern Ireland's voice is heard in these discussions?
Yes, he makes a good point. I already have had some discussions on other matters relating to the creative industries with members of the Executive in Northern Ireland, and I think I've got another call next week. Of course, I'll make sure. He makes a very good point about tourism. An awful lot of tourists who come to the UK want to see the places where some of their favourite movies and television series were made, and that's one of the things that Visit Britain is capitalising on at the moment with its Starring Great Britain campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much enjoy discussing the British film industry because members across the House stands up and say that they've got the Hollywood of Hertfordshire and the Bedfordshire and everywhere else. And I'm blessed in Spelthorne because, of course, I've got Europe's biggest film studios, the second biggest in the world in Shepperton, second, interestingly, not to Hollywood, but to China. And there is a certain amount of nervousness in Spelthorne as a result of the posting on Truth Social that the Minister has come here to talk about. I agree with him that it's incredibly difficult logistically and technically to unpick the US-UK IP in a film. I think that will prove incredibly difficult. And I therefore commend him for his very sort of considered run at this, and I think it's the right thing to do. I visited Cineco, one of our many British film support companies. They make sets and props. I visited them a couple of weeks ago, and one of the points that they made on the skills is that the apprenticeship sort of model doesn't really work terribly well for industries which have so many freelancers and such lumpy work schedules. So, as a sidebar to his meeting with the industry leaders tomorrow, would he please raise it and discuss it with industry leaders?
Another Lawrence Arabia question.
Well, interestingly, I was at the Bad Wolf Studios in Cardiff last week, and this is one of the things that Jane Tranter was raising with me, and how important it has been for them that they've been able to take on apprentices working in the company because they have a security of knowing a number of projects. They've got their own studios, and it's not they've not just been making Doctor Who; they've been making His Dark Materials, and Industry is being filmed there at the moment. A whole series of different projects that enables them to be able to take people on not just on a daily basis. But one of the things that we need to change is the apprenticeship levy in the UK so that it works better for the film industry, so that they're able to make those long-term commitments to people's future careers.
Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the Minister's comments this afternoon. As a member of the Cultural, Media and Sports Select Committee, we have heard over and over again how important the UK tax film credits are to the industry and the tangible difference it is making to filmmakers across the UK. Can the Minister advise what is the government considering increasing or adjusting them in any way to maintain competitiveness with US states and other international markets, given the context that we are now working within?
Minister.
Well, I've always said that I support these. We first introduced them under a Labour government under Gordon Brown, and then they were continued by the Conservative government, and then we introduced two new ones. I think, incidentally, that the independent £15 million movie tax credit will make a significant difference to the UK, in particular at this point. But I note that some of the documents that have been around in relation to the semi-announcement in the United States of America have praised the way we have done things in the UK and want to mirror it in other parts of the world. So I'll take praise wherever I can get it.
Mr. Speaker, I think it still is around the uncertainty of President Trump's comments and the unsettledness that puts in the industry, and especially in Northern Ireland, where we have, the Titanic film studios, Northern Ireland Screen working away. It's already working on A Night of Seven Kingdoms, which is the prequel to the Game of Thrones. So there's a lot of industry, a lot of activity already going. In his meeting tomorrow, could the Minister consider actually including Northern Ireland Screen as well as industry in that, rather than leaving them another week for that engagement?
Very fair point. I'm very happy to do that.
Much, Mr. Speaker. I'm deeply proud that St Margaret's in my constituency has been home to Twickenham Film Studios for over 100 years, which has been involved in both production and post-production work for big-name films including The Italian Job, Gandhi, and most recently the Oscar-winning sound production for Top Gun Maverick. But they have been beset by financial challenges, from the US writers' strike to the issues raised by my honourable friend, the member for St Albans, of skyrocketing business rates. So and these potential tariffs could really deal the fatal blow to studios such as Twickenham. So could I urge the Minister, as others have, to work with the Treasury and the Valuation Office on bringing down the rateable value for these film studios? But also, can I invite him to follow in the footsteps of Tom Cruise and come to St Margaret's and visit Twickenham Film Studios?
Minister.
The thing is, he does all his own stunts, doesn't he? And I'm a little bit nervous about, being dangled off the back of a helicopter or dumped in a vat of, anyway, whatever. The Shadow Minister says he'll happily arrange. Well, if he'll happily arrange that, I'll invite him to come and see the Rhondda Tunnel, and we can dangle him down a hole as well. Anyway, the point, she's making the point that has been made several times. Tom Cruise is one of the biggest investors in the UK because of all the movies that have been made here, and we're very grateful to him. The BFI is going to be honouring him next week. I think that is a really good thing. As I say, we are the best place in the world to make movies, and we want to continue that. I'm feeling very left out in not having a studio in my own constituency. But we have produced some of the best actors in the world, including Sir Stanley Baker, who I think one of his great films, you'll know this, Mr. Speaker, was Sodom and Gomorrah. I was thinking more of a different film. What film were you... Anyway, we're not meant to do this, are we, Mr. Speaker? Order. And I'm very proud of a young actor at the moment, Callum Scott Howells, who's doing phenomenally well.
Final episode, Jim Sherman.
Never the final episode, still a wee bit to go yet. Can I thank the Minister very much for his answers and for the energy that he displays on behalf of the sector. Following on from the question to the Business and Trade Minister yesterday about the film industry in Northern Ireland, I had highlighted the £330 million income since 2018. The importance of USA films within this cannot be overstated, with epics such as Blade Runner, say nothing of Game of Thrones and Star Wars, so many using our highly skilled studios and work due to the cost effectiveness of this option. These Trump tariffs, of course, will negate much of the benefit. And what discussions can be had? I'm quite confident of the Minister's response on this, but what discussions can be had to emphasise the need for consideration for our sector, an integral part of this United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Thank you.
Minister.
Well, I thought the credits were already rolling, and then he comes up. But, look, I feel... It may be just that I'm a very optimistic person by nature, but I feel very optimistic about where all of these negotiations will end up. I'm very hopeful that we will end up with some kind of deal. I also passionately believe that wherever that deal ends up, the UK film industry will succeed, because we have always been a great nation at telling stories that people want to watch all around the world. We've got some of the greatest actors. We may be a small nation, but we managed to dominate on screens all around the world because we're talented. We're just talented and that's talent, everybody will still want to keep on buying, whatever the deal may be.
Right, we'll let the front bench change over.